We are live. Gerald, we just started. Stop laughing. We just started. Because then I start laughing. Your laughing makes me laugh.
It's not
Welcome.
me this time.
Okay, I'm going to start. Welcome to the Bradbury Challenge, the podcast where three writers attempt to write one short story every week for 2016. My name is Maya, and I am here with Chrissy Moss and Gerald Hornsby. How are you guys doing this week?
Okay.
Yeah, we're having a good time this week.
Gerald, don't get me started because then people complain that I laugh too much. They're like, you need to stop laughing.
Really?
Stop laughing.
Yes, because we
Rude.
have way too much fun on this show. Okay, now I've been excited all week. All week I'm like, I can't wait to the show. I can't wait to talk about my story. But let's start with you guys. Gerald, how was your project? Did you work on your some more on your project, or did you start something new?
There's something new. Well, first of all, I wrote three flash pieces which were on the subject of Valentine's, but they won't be ready for this Valentine's, so they'll. I mean, I'll put them on my blog, but they won't be ready to publish until next Valentine's. But that's okay. They're in the bag. So, but this week, the reason for the sort of lack of output this week was because I've been wrestling with a novel idea, and it was too big, and every time I focused in on something, I thought I'm missing something, and I've got to cover this, and I couldn't get a handle on it. So, remembering last week's podcast about how we said we need to get out of our writing space and maybe take a voice recorder, and so last Friday I did that. I took the dog for a walk, and I took my phone, and I just, right, I want to write this story about X, and that's what I said. And then I started thinking about it. I thought, well, I could do this, and I could write about that. Oh, and this character could be, oh, and they're related, and this is wham! I was so excited by it. I've got the thing sort of planned now, roughly. I'm very, very excited about that. So as far as short stories are concerned, yes, I did a few flashes, and I'm quite pleased with those. But the main story this week has been the work on a novel. So
I'm so happy for you. So your flash fiction stories, about how long are they? Are they like super micro or?
yeah, well, medium micro, so sort of 600 to 800 words.
Okay,
So yeah, they're reasonable.
that sounds great. How about you, Chrissy?
This week has been challenging in lots of ways. So I actually worked on a couple of different short stories
Mm-hmm.
and a couple of different ideas, and I got a basic rough draft of one done, but I'm gonna have to go rewrite it before I can even send it out. And the other two, I just got some ideas down for something that I would want to do eventually,
Mm-hmm.
but I wouldn't be able to finish it.
But having
Yeah,
a rough draft is what this entire challenge is about. The draft isn't about having something that's totally complete and sent out to your group. Like, that's an additional challenge you've given yourself. But the
right.
fact is, you have a completed draft, and then you have two more
Well,
ideas that you've been
I mean,
working
it's
on.
more like an outline than a draft, though. So,
Mm-hmm.
which I wanted to have a completed story, a completed rough draft. But this is more like a completed outline with parts of the draft.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like the full
It doesn't
story
feel
yet.
done.
Yeah.
And I ended up, because I learned this week that if I am editing, I am editing. I am not writing.
Yeah.
And so I spent 3 or 4 days reformatting a whole bunch of my stories so that I could re-upload them to Amazon and get everything nicer and better looking and consistent across my entire catalog. And that's time consuming.
Yeah, it is time consuming. I run into issues with that myself. I'm trying to put myself on a schedule of, editing 1 hour a day so that my editing time doesn't seep into my writing time and then that seeps into my work time. Working freelance proves very challenging because then it's like I feel like I'm always working. Even
Hmm.
though I have all this extra time, like nothing else gets done because I'm constantly thinking about working or training or planning, even when I'm off the clock. And so, yeah, I totally feel you on that. For my short story, I did something so out of my wheelhouse. And I think that's what's so exciting about this because it's so completely different than anything I've ever written. The only thing that is remotely like within my wheelhouse is it's a story about a kid. For some reason, I have a really strong
You
children's.
like kids.
Mm.
I like writing about kids. There's something about that children's voice that really resonates with me. I think it's because I have never completely grown up, and so I still have that kid's voice in me. And a lot of times when I write a children's voice, I get comments about how naturally they sound like real children. They don't sound like an adult talking about children. Even if it's a precocious story where the child sounds older, that children's voice is still really clear in a way
Hmm.
that when I write about adults in short form, it doesn't work the same. I find that my voice isn't as clear. It is really clear in novel. I think it just takes me more words to develop that adult voice. I'm not sure what that is. So this story, I don't know. I was watching, I was binge watching Ghost Whisperer on Netflix, some horrible show that I couldn't stop watching. Like it's just one of those. And I was watching this show, and then I was thinking about reading The Girl with All the Gifts. I haven't read it yet, but I was thinking about it, and then I was just laying in bed in some like twilight sleep, and all of a sudden the story came to me, and it was just like this flash of like a little girl stuck in a completely white room. She's not allowed to see any color at all. And I was like, where the hell did that come from? And like, why would she be locked up and not allowed to see any color? And then like this whole idea of a group of people that use color as some sort of magic in some way, and there's something's happened and they've been locked up, they've been killed off, and they're testing to see if they can remove her ability to use color. And it was like it just exploded in my head. This little girl is not allowed to see color, and she's in this like facility where they're doing tests on her and stuff, and she still remembers color, but she won't tell them that she remembers color. And then she's brought into this room, and she sees skin color, and the skin color is dark, and brown is a combination of all colors, right? And so she finally gets a glimpse of her own skin, and she uses it and explodes the facility. I was like, where the hell did that come from? That is
That's
so not my
awesome.
wheelhouse. It is not anywhere near my wheelhouse.
That is an amazing story, though.
I love it. Oh my God, I love it. I was like, this story has to be cleaned up and it has to be submitted. And I have no idea if do I submit that as speculative fiction? Like, what the hell do I submit it as? I
It
don't
sounds
know.
like speculative fiction.
It felt like speculative
However,
fiction. It felt like a little bit of George Saunders mixed with Margaret Atwood. Like if they had like a child.
except for isn't Margaret Atwood not science, quote unquote, not science fiction, even though it
She's
Yeah.
considered speculative.
Yeah.
And so I think it will fit as speculative, and I'm working on it. I'm tweaking it. I want to get the wording just right. I want to make sure that I have like really strong literary elements, because that is my true love. But this story I swear, I was laying in a twilight sleep, and it just hit me all at once. I was just laying there like, why would she be stuck in this room? And I'm like picturing this girl. She's not even allowed to like read because words are black on paper, and black is a combination of all colors, and so she's reading Braille because she's literally not allowed to see any color, and her whole body is covered in white clothing so that she can't see her own skin. I was like, whoa!
That's an amazing concept.
only. How is she reading Braille if her hands are covered though?
It's speculative. They have really thin gloves. Damn it! Don't ruin my story.
Don't you hate it when that happens?
Hey, man. If we can figure out a way to use a touch screen with gloves on, they can figure out a way to read Braille with gloves on.
There you go.
I tell you a funny story. We have a radio soap on over here. It's called The Archers. It's supposed to be an everyday story of country folk and farming and this sort of, and it's sort of twee and a bit, it's okay, but some of the characters went on one of these steam trains. So they refurbish the steam trains and they're on a bit of line and they go on a steam train, choo choo choo, and back again. And in the group on Facebook that people chat about this program, they say, "Well, no steam trains would be open this time of year." And you think, what? And they said, well, obviously not, because there's not the people to do it, so they wouldn't open until Easter at the earliest. It's fiction. It doesn't matter. I just suspend belief, for God's sake.
I have a literary story that literally I wrote this story and I had worked on it for like 6 months. It was ready to go out. I put it on Scribifile and someone's like, why is the water rising? Because they're in a creek and the creek is up from the bay. They're at the Napa Creek and the water level is rising. And I spent 3 months trying to figure out how I can make the water level rise. I'm like,
that one's really easy though, because that happens when there's a big rainstorm.
But there wasn't one in the story. That was the problem.
The rainstorm doesn't have to be right there. It can be a mile or two away.
Thing where like the water was rising, and so I'm like, okay, so how much? So I'm like looking at the Napa Valley water table and figuring out like how much can the water rise between 8 o'clock in the morning and like 4 in the afternoon, so that I could make this story logistically possible. Because I remember the water level rising, but dang it, I was a kid, so I don't remember. So I'm like, okay, how am I going to work this? And it's one of those little things where it's like, once I figured it out, I was like, okay, now the story can rest. I'm okay now. No one's going to call me out on the story being bullshit.
I mean, you just had to add a line saying there must be a storm in the foothills. And there you go.
It's a bit funny. Maybe that's the sort of discussion topic for this week, research, because I remember I was trying to write something that was based in California somewhere, and so I go on Google Earth and Street View, and I was just looking around, and I spent about 3.5 hours driving up and down. What's that big road next to the ocean? Is it Ocean
Highway 1?
101
something?
in California?
Yeah, it's 101 and then it turns into 1.
And it's got a name. It's sort of Ocean View Drive or something.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating. And whenever I came to a little town, I'd turn off at the traffic lights and have a little drive around the town.
Stoplight ones.
Yeah, and I've quite forgotten why I was doing that. And I just thought, well, I've had a good time. I've got no writing.
You had a virtual trip through California. I actually live near there, I'm in the North Bay area, so I'm about an hour north of San Francisco by our traffic. And so I drive that a lot. I've driven it on a motorcycle. I've driven it in a car. It's a beautiful, beautiful drive. I rode my bicycle from San Francisco to Santa Cruz using Highway 1. And it's interesting to do that virtually. I feel like as writers, we have so many tools now to be able to research, and it's both good and bad. Because you can research something remotely and still not get the feel of that place, because you're not there. And I think, like, now it's like, oh, yeah, I could take the trip, but I'll just look it up online. But at the same time,
it's not the same.
Look stuff up online and then just waste hours and hours and hours.
It's kind of strange. I had a story set in my town to the north of us here called Norwich. It's how far is it? About 60, 70 miles, something, maybe, yeah, something like that. And I was, I did the Street View thing, and da, 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 da. And then oh, I didn't have to. I went on a writing weekend thing up there, and it was so different. It was the sounds and the smells, just, you know, doing it
Right.
remotely. You just saying, here's this and there's that, and there's a shop there, and but when you're there, you're immersed in the environment. It's so different, and I think it so enriches the story if you get things like that into the story as well.
Yeah, I knew that for myself. I try to write with all my senses.
Mm.
And the
Hmm.
sense of smell, the sense of taste, like those are all really important to writing. And I don't think you can get that without going on location.
So I'm just remembering all of my trips to the coast in California, and we would always go down 36 to
Mm,
get there. And
yeah.
36 is an amazing highway because it narrows down to one lane in a lot of places, and there are hairpin turns, and there are sheer drop-offs on one side. And so
Hmm.
you're driving 50 miles an hour down around these turns and just tearing down the mountain, eating up the miles, and you're rocking and rolling, and you smell the pine trees, and it's absolutely an amazing experience. But if you did that online, you'd get the pretty pictures, and you'd get to see the drop-offs, and you'd get to see what it is, but you
But you
wouldn't
wouldn't
feel
really
it.
get it. You
Oh,
wouldn't really feel it.
And you could experience that somewhere else and maybe overlap that in your writing, but at the same time, if you've never experienced it, how are you going to write about that? How are you going to feel that in your writing?
Yeah. I wonder, I want to ask you because you write very different from me or Gerald. I think me and Gerald write much more like real world stuff, and I know you write a lot of fantasy.
Uh-huh.
What does your research look like? Like, I've heard of this whole world building thing, and I just imagine someone just making up stuff, but I know that's not everything that goes in it. Like, I know you're not sitting there like you're playing Dungeons and Dragons and just throwing things against the wall. So, what does your research look like when you're thinking about something for a story? Did we lose her?
oh,
Man, it was a great question. Where'd she
that's a
go?
good question.
I'm like, dang it. Now I'm going to have to edit. I don't like editing.
Oh, Chrissy, what are you doing? One sec, one sec.
She was typing. She pushed the button. That's why I banned her from typing. It's not just because of the clicking.
Hands off the keyboard. We're watching you.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh dear.
Yeah, she pushed something. It's okay. She'll be back. She'll be back. Because I want to hear the answer to this question. It's something I was wondering
Yeah,
for a
don't forget.
while. Because I know when I do research,
Mm,
like for my book, okay, I had to do a lot of research for my book. One of my characters is Latina. She grew up in Argentina when she was small. Her father is a poet. Like, essentially, it was what would happen if Pablo Neruda had a daughter and she was a poet and he didn't think women should be poets. And that's what this woman came out from. And then I also had to research my male character because he was inspired by someone I knew, but it had been years ago. And I wanted to make sure I didn't make any cultural faux pas. He is early first generation immigrant, and I wanted to make sure I got that right. And that kind of research is very different than researching, a world or a magic system.
mm,
It's just very, very different type of research. And I look at my book, and that's one of the places where I know, that's why I say my second book is going to end up being my first book, because my first book, I know, in addition to all the regular editing, I'm going to need to give that book to some Asian men, have them read it, make sure I haven't made any typical cultural faux pas, make sure I haven't swung too far in the other direction.
Yeah.
For my second book, my biggest research hurdles are the fact that it's been so long since I've been in New Orleans. And so before I leave the States, I'm going to go to New Orleans, visit some family, and get the feel and the taste of the area again and
Yeah.
fix that part of the book and then leave. And that's going to be the big one. The mental health stuff in that book, I've nailed that. I've spent years studying psychology. I feel very comfortable with that part of the book, but making sure that New Orleans as a character is accurate is really important. It's going to be hard because this is a book that is based before Katrina. So New Orleans back then was very different than New Orleans now, but the smells and everything in the area are the same. The other thing I'm going to be really working on for that book is there are parts of that book that are based in African traditional religion.
Right.
And so that's hard to research because not a lot of that stuff's written down. Now I have a resource and I can hand her my book and figure out like where I have things that are inaccurate. And I've done a lot of research on my own, but that's a different type of research as well. It's not something I can just go to the library and find 5 books and know that the books are accurate. I have to actually talk to people and say, hey, is this accurate? Does this make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the things about writing sort of real world fiction is that you do have to have, the example I quoted earlier about not running steam trains this time of year. That's a bit extreme, and there's just going to be a couple of people that think that, but certain stuff has to be. People have to feel comfortable with the locations, don't they?
Mm-hmm. And we're still waiting for Chrissy. So for your writing, for this project that you're doing, what kind of research have you had to do?
I haven't done any, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's all set in one location. They're all sort of different characters that.
But aren't your characters based on archetypes for the most part?
Yeah, yeah.
So you didn't have to do any research for that?
No. I'm because I'm transposing them to a sort of modern setting. So I'm just taking inspiration from the archetypes, but then creating these characters with similar sort of traits as the archetypes. So yeah. So it's I still haven't quite worked out what's going to tie them all together. I mean, yes, they all live in the same building, but there's got to be one thing. I don't know what.
Okay.
Maybe I have somebody drop a bomb on it or something. Just
Gerald.
So we can see Chrissy. Right, you've got your audio turned off.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I had to switch back to the desktop because I can't figure out what happened to the laptop.
Oh, shit.
It just suddenly stopped recording, and then all of my stuff just disappeared. And so I have the recording from the beginning of the thing.
Okay, that's fine.
But yeah, I can't get the
That's fine. You sound fine now, so I don't know what you did, and that's fine.
And then the speaker stopped working too, and it was like,
it's okay. We'll figure it out. So I wanted to ask you, since you write.
I heard your question.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, but I'm going to repeat it for editing.
Okay.
Chrissy, are you recording now?
I am.
Okay.
Okay. So.
Would you want to do a 1, 2, 3?
What?
Because I had to restart.
It's okay. It's okay. Let's do 1, 2, 3. 1,
2,
3.
Okay. So, Chrissy, I wanted to ask you, since you write so different from me and Gerald, our work is very much set in the real world. What does your research look like when you're working on a new world for a story?
So it's a combination of everything that I've been learning over the years. I absolutely love nonfiction books about environments and how they work and how history works and how people work. And so I combine all of the things that I'm learning about people, and I took a class. The classes I took in college were all about science and biology and environmentalism and what was the other one? Social, how people interact. I've taken
Anthropology.
abnormal psychologies. All of those things, they combine into a whole, and you have this clear picture of how the world works. And then when you're building the world, you use those pieces together. And so I start with either people or a map or um, even just a government system, and I build around that with what I know about people.
Yeah, I think what you said something really important there. And I think this pertains to that idea of in order to be a writer, you have to be of the world. So as a writer, you're using the stuff that you've learned through studies in psychology and environmentalism and all these other topics that you're interested in and you read about on a regular basis. For me, I do the same thing with psychology. I read a lot about psychology. I studied psychology in school. I still read psych journals for fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I do a lot of just random science-y, geeky article reading. What did you just do? And undo it. Stop messing with stuff. So I do a lot of that type of stuff, a lot of outside reading, and that all influences my writing.
Uh-huh. I just turned off the camera to see if that helped.
Yeah, it helped. It's so weird how your camera's doing that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of fiction writers do read a lot of nonfiction, or they watch a lot of documentaries. I think that we naturally are just curious people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we're a lot of people watchers too. We watch people interact. Most of the writers I know, not all of them, but a lot of them are introverts.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to a party and stuff, and you're the wallflower. You sit in the back of the room and you watch everybody else, or you listen, and sometimes you say something, but most of the time you're watching other people. You're listening. You're paying attention. You're trying to figure out what makes them work or why they're saying the things they're saying instead of just blurting things out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Yeah, it's. I think we touched on this in a previous podcast about being listeners rather than talkers, and I think you just soak up the environment, whether it's the people or the location, and you just soak everything up and try and get a feeling for the for what you're going to write. I think that's important. And there was a silly thing. I'll try and find it later. Maybe put it on the link on the website. There was a thing. I think it's a stand-up comedian is doing this thing where he got this guy in the audience to sing Amazing Grace. So he said, sing Amazing Grace. So Amazing Grace, and he said, right now, think that you've just been released from prison or something, or from being kept somewhere, and you've been released for the first time and you're out in the face. And he sang it totally differently. And the guy said, you were doing it and now you're feeling it.
Yeah.
And I think that's to feel and to absorb everything, and to feel at one in your environment with the people, and then to be able to reproduce that, I think is the art of a skillful writer.
And I think, I will say that I spent a lot of time in acting classes and doing acting as a child, and all that method acting training completely influences my writing. I use it on such an intuitive level, and it developed a sense of empathy with even the most difficult things to empathize with. And I'm so thankful for those years because I know it makes me a better writer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where you talk to young writers and they're told, in order to be a writer, you need to read. But no one really says what to read. And so, they read in their genre. They might not necessarily push themselves to read difficult materials. They might not necessarily read outside their genre. And I always want to say to them, read everything you can get your hands on. Watch everything you can get your hands on. Get out in the world and just watch people. But don't just stick to what you know. Otherwise, you're only going to be writing what's already been written. But read the nonfiction, read stuff outside your genre, and then you're able to work within your genre in a more creative way.
Similarly, when people say, should I go to college for writing? I tell them you should go to college for anything else but writing.
Study everything.
Study everything.
Have 2 majors and a minor, and take a bunch of psych classes, and
there's something to be said for the idea that college gives you a well-rounded perspective on the world. A lot of it is I don't agree with, but there are some great things you can learn in college, like abnormal psychology. You get a really good look at inside the human mind and see what can go wrong, which is to say a lot.
Everyone's favorite class.
I loved it. I got straight A's in that class.
Yeah, I love studying psychology. I also really enjoyed sociology. I took some anthropology, both cultural and just regular anthropology. And so much fun, so interesting. It was so hard to graduate because I was having so much fun learning all this stuff. And it wasn't that I was having fun with people, because I didn't have any friends in college. I didn't go drinking in college. I was just taking lots and lots of really interesting classes that had nothing to do with one another. And you know what? I benefited from it. And it makes me a little sad that that is something that's going away, because I know that I benefited from that.
Yeah. Well, the school system in general needs to be restructured to be more modern, I think.
Yeah. It would be, if you weren't paying $100,000, it's no big deal to come out of school well-rounded without a job.
My coworker is going to be a lawyer. He's getting everything together, and he's like, by the time I'm done, I'm going to have $150,000 in debt. And he's like, he knows this, he expects this,
But as a lawyer, that's totally acceptable, because you're going to get a job when you're done. You hope.
Not necessarily, because we have too many lawyers.
Yeah, there is that.
He's specifically going to do this because he wants to help people.
Oh, great. Then he's really going to be broke for a long time.
Yeah. He's like, I have no illusions. I know exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to be broke.
Hooray for reality. So tell me, guys, what, if anything, did you struggle with this week?
Oh, everything.
Poor Chrissy.
Well, and so I have not been having good sleep because my toothaches, because my filling came out. So that's awesome. I did a whole bunch of editing, so I got a whole bunch of my books redone and republished, which that is amazing.
That is major
no
awesome
sarcasm there at all. I am very happy, and I actually reformatted my paper book for my novel, because when I got the copy of it, the text was readable, but it wasn't big enough. It wasn't the right size font, so I had to redo it. And so when I finally got it to the correct font and all published and everything, I'm expecting it soon. It is 300 pages long instead of 200, and I'm like, that's a novel.
Mm-hmm.
I finally feel like I actually wrote a novel. It's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
That's many shades of awesome.
And then I've also been finishing the third novel, because I finally figured out the ending, which has been giving me trouble. I had an ending, and I realized that that there were still loose ends and I had to tie those up. And so I found the ending, and I've almost finished it.
That is awesome.
I think I could, if I buckled down and actually wrote for this entire week and did nothing else but that, I think I could actually finish my novel now. Which, yeah.
That's very good. Yeah.
I've been working on this for months. I am so happy. But
You're
so
bubbling over.
I know. So I think for me it's just time management and
Yeah.
the procrastination issue. I have so many things going on right now, like the editing and the novel and trying to do a short story and not being able to focus on any one thing. So I'm trying to teach myself how to say, okay, this is the thing I am working on right at this moment, and then now I am done, and now I'm going on to this thing.
Yeah.
Instead of holding all of those things in at the same time and being all over the place.
Well, I ran into the same thing too, and what I want to do is to make a schedule for myself. But in order to do that, I have to wake up at a regular time, and I have to go to sleep at a regular time, and it just seems like this huge project that I can't do. But I know that in and of itself is a form of procrastination too.
Well, and I can't seem to have a regular schedule because I have all the family obligations and work and everything else around me that impinges on any schedule I would put on myself. So the only thing that I have scheduled that I actually stick to is, getting up and going to work, and then the podcast. Everything else is contingent on what the heck's going on around me.
But isn't that part of the problem? Because you're saying getting up and going to work, but writing is getting up and going to work.
Yes. But I don't get paid well for it yet.
And you won't unless you get up and go to work.
I know. It's like, it's just catch-22, damn it.
So, Gerald, what, if any, struggles did you have this week with your writing?
Yeah, I suppose I had a lack of motivation because I had the novel that I started at the beginning of the year. Just it's not going anywhere. It's not going very well, and I had this as I said, this other idea, but I couldn't get to grips with it, and so that it sort of bothered me, and it really, I don't know, it put me in a bit of a funk and didn't really want to write, and I wanted to write but couldn't really be bothered to write, and so it's just that this week. It's been a bit of a funny old week, but I am motivated now.
Yeah, finding your story like that is just such a huge breakthrough, and I'm sure you could probably split your week into before and after.
Yeah.
For me, it is scheduling. I definitely am struggling with creating a regular pattern for myself. I want to wake up at the same time every day, read for an hour, and then write for an hour. And that would be the perfect way to start my day. And as of yet, I haven't been able to do it. And I think it's because I haven't made it a priority yet. I also think on some level I'm not good enough, or I don't warrant it. I have to think deeper. There's always reasons why we don't do these things. We know what we need to do. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's a question of figuring out what is that block so that I can remove it. And I still don't know what that block is. But there is one there. I can feel it there. The other struggle I had was after so long of, just turning out stories, working on the same book, it's been a long time since I had a short story that just flooded me with a ton of ideas all at once. And I had almost the problem of having too many ideas in my head all at once. And it was like, whoa, now what do I do with all these ideas? My head's going to explode kind of thing. And then I have to try to weed through them and actually put words on paper. But I can only write a couple words, sentence at a time. And in my head, I'm whole books and ideas are coming at me. And I'm slow down, brain.
Well, could this become a novel for you?
It can't. I'm not allowing it to. But it's not allowed. But, just having tons and tons of ideas like that and being able to calm down, take a breath, start at the beginning, get to the inciting action, get to the middle, have an ending. When I have all this going on in my brain, it's like, that was my biggest challenge, was too many ideas all at once. But it was a fun challenge to have. I'm not complaining. I'd much prefer that challenge than the challenge of not having any ideas, right?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I checked, because I leave lots of stuff open on my computer, and I did the thing with Apple where you'd see all the windows open, and I think, what are all these little files? And there were story ideas, and one of them was going to be a novel, and I'm not quite sure where it was going, but just had this concept. And then yesterday I thought, this could make a short story, rather than trying to fit the sort of fairly small concept into a novel, and what's going to happen, and who's it going to happen to. I thought this could be a short. So for me, I'm thinking it's probably going to end up as 2,500 words, which is a long short story for me. But
that is a long short story for you. You're usually sub 2,000, 1,200, 1,500.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I would be really interested to see a longer short story out of you. See how that feels, and maybe even get a look at it. I'm curious. I don't think I've read any of your writing.
No.
No.
Yeah, my basic outline is 1,000 words, so.
The outline for your short story is 1,000 words. Now you're starting to sound like me.
So my short story, I wrote it from the prompt I gave last week.
Fun.
So as I was writing it, I had to look up things like how long can a scuba tank keep you underwater, and the little things. I've never gone scuba diving, so I have no idea. Yeah. But and how do you take pictures underwater? Things like that. But
that's interesting.
All those fun details.
And as I was writing it, I was thinking, this could be a novella. I don't want to write a novella.
Wow.
You just want to turn everything into a novel, don't you?
I had this problem when I was younger too, that I would start writing something thinking, you're supposed to write short stories to start, and so I will write a short story. 50,000 words later.
See, I knew this because every time I talk about a short story idea, you pop up with, that could be a novel.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
It's not allowed.
I did learn how to write short story, and I got really good at flash fiction, but once I started doing novels again, that's
everything you see is a novel.
Everything is a novel.
Yeah. Once you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So we are running right up on time. Is there anything else that you guys would like to say about this week?
Audio files suck.
How about you, Gerald?
No, I think I've spoken enough this week.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in to the Bradbury Challenge. Definitely stay tuned next week to see how our writing is going. If you want to... Oh, yeah, writing prompt. Thanks.
Okay. Well, you got me again.
Okay, let's just start the writing prompt section over again because I'm gonna have to do so much cutting on this episode. This episode is just a train wreck. Sorry. So, what is this week's writing prompt, Gerald?
Okay, for this week, I'm using a picture which came up as a memory from Facebook. Facebook sort of pops up these memories from so many years ago on this day, and it was a photograph I took, and it was fairly close to here, and there was about 6 inches to 9 inches of snow on the ground, and there were 2 people walking heavily, heavy coats on, waterproof trousers, boots, walking through the snow with trees either side, and there was a little rise in the distance, and in the background the sky was grey and black, and there was an amazing contrast between the white of the snow, the colours of the people, and the black sky in the background. So so that picture is today's prompt.
And if you want to take a look at that picture, you can visit literaryroadhouse.com and look under Bradbury Challenge, and the picture will be posted in this week's notes. And while you're there, take a look at all of our other podcasts, including Literary Roadhouse, One Short Story Once a Week, and Literary Roadhouse Book Club. Until next time, ciao.
Bye.
And I think that was good.
Yeah.